All right, welcome back to part 3 of the commission build, where we'll actually get the assembly done, we'll oil it up, and then we will install it in the building where it goes. So really all we have left to do is put it together, cut our French cleat, and then oil it, and it's good to go. The rocket's done and painted. That took forever. Absolutely did not have a good time doing that, so would not recommend. But what we're going to do to make this a little bit easier, and I've just kind of like roughly laid it out here to kind of get an idea of what it would look like, because my measurements were pretty off, not going to lie to you. I don't know how I misdid the math, because math is pretty absolute, but doing 6 inches between racks, so really 2.75 and then 3.25, I think, or 2.2, whatever that math works out. It kind of scrunches this all way down, and 6 feet were too long for these rails. So that's okay. I just kind of spaced it out, got a rough idea, and I've come up with 8 inches between racks. Works best. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to move these rails into 24 inches apart. So to make that all much easier, we're going to take some of our scrap sycamore, and we're just going to cut spacers. So 2 24-inch spacers so that I can get the rails lined up properly, and then we'll do an 8-inch spacer, maybe 2 8-inch spacers to make sure I get these lined up correctly, and then whatever this ends up being, that spacer as well. So let's go ahead and cut some spacers, take some measurements. Okay, so I've decided that before I start assembling everything, I want to oil it. And the reason I've changed my mind on that, I was going to assemble everything and then oil it, but I think kind of like paint oil may be hard to get in some of the nooks and crannies, and I don't want anything left without finish on it. So we're just going to go ahead and oil them up, and then we'll get to assembly. Okay, so we got everything oiled up, and now we're just going to go ahead and start assembling. So I got everything pretty much prepped. So I'm just going to time lapse through the majority of this. I'm going to start at the bottom and build up. All right, so really and honestly, tragically, my hooks broke. I mean, I totally understand why I was putting pressure, leaning down onto them, and that was really what all the weight was on. So they just snapped. It's really a huge bummer. I'm going to try to save them. I think glue will be enough. What really sucks is they hold a pretty heavy rocket. So I'm really not sure what that will do, especially over time with a glue joint. So we're going to try to save them and see what happens. So here we go. All right, so gluing up a repair was just, it wasn't an option. Let's be honest. There's no good way to even get clamping pressure on them. And the duct tape clamp, even though I am a fan, did not work for this purpose. So as you can see, still just way too loose, never going to hold a 20-pound rocket. So we went ahead and remade them, and this time I was very deliberate about making them a lot thicker. So if you remember when I originally made them, I said that I felt that they were a little too thin, even though I like the look of them. So now they're a good ½ inch thicker, so almost an inch, almost an inch thick. And you know, it's definitely unfortunate that these broke, but if it tells me anything, it's that maybe that was just not a solid enough piece of wood. So we'll get these oiled up and then put back onto the piece. All right, the very last thing we're going to do on this project is make a French cleat to install this with. So that's what's actually going to hold the weight. Benefits to a French cleat is kind of like a TV mount. You can move it around, so it doesn't have to, it's not fixed to one position. Essentially, once you've got one piece of the cleat against the wall and the other on your piece, you can kind of slide it horizontally to get it where you want it. The other big benefit, and the reason I'm using it for this project, is that it's hidden. And so a French cleat you can't see, especially if you recess it into your piece. That's just essentially what I'm doing, since the rails are 3/4 inch and this is just over 3/4 inch. So it'll make sure it meets correctly. So it's very simple. Decide what length of piece you want for your French cleat. So I'm going to 24 inches. I'm not exactly sure the stud difference or the space between studs in this building that I'm going to install the piece in. So I'm going with 24 inches, hoping that they're 12 inches apart, but we'll see. And then you set your saw blade to 45 degrees and you give it one pass. Let's go ahead and do that real quick and I'll show you how it works. All right, now to show you how this works is I cut the piece like this, right? If I put it back together like a puzzle, it fits together nicely. Okay, good to go. I need to fix that edge real quick, but either way, and so when I install it onto the wall, this where I've written out will face out towards me, and then the piece with my right hand here up here will be into the piece, so that as I slide it down onto each other, it fits together. If you were to do both sides that I've written out against each other, then you can kind of see there it makes a 45-degree angle, so obviously it won't work. So you got to have it turned around so that out fits into out, and you're good to go there. And that's how a French cleat works, essentially. We'll see it tomorrow when we install it. All right, you could say I've hopefully learned my lesson, and I went ahead and set my crosscut sled underneath the top sign here so that the weight isn't on my hooks. And then I found the middle of my French cleat, and I landed up the middle of my panel. And then I've just ensured that by doing a test fit, as this is facing out on the wall towards me, when I slide it into place, it'll make that French cleat connection. Okay, so now what I'm going to go ahead and do is just glue this bad boy down. Yeah, something like that. And then we'll go ahead. Let me clamp this down real quick. I think that would be more beneficial.